Well, thank you so much. Thank you for the nice welcome. Thank you, Mike, for coming to be with us again. It's nice to see you again. Nice to let you out from wherever you were. I sent Mike an email a week ago, and I said I've heard you need to get out and see some people, so since you're coming to our convention anyway, would you do my address for me? Because you'd be more interesting and more entertaining and people would laugh at you. I never heard back from him. He said he didn't get it. I don't know. Anyway, on with the speech. So thank you so much for coming, first of all, to this convention, because it's been a bit of a difficult time and would have been easy to say, well, I just don't feel like going and staying home. So thank you for coming. I want to start out by thanking my dear wife, Michelle. She's right up here in front. If you give her a hand, please. She's getting good at the Miss America wave. She's my best friend in the whole world and is my support system. And without her and her support, I couldn't do what I do for our farm or Farm Bureau or anything. So that's just fantastic. We have 2 sons who are happily married, and we have 4 grandkids. We just celebrated the 4th birthday of our oldest granddaughter just the other day. And she was pretty bummed out that she couldn't have a birthday party because last year they did a bouncy house and had a whole bunch of people in. She remembered that from her 3rd birthday. And she was really bummed that she couldn't do the same thing on her 4th birthday. Well, the morning after her 4th birthday, I told her happy birthday, and she says, Grandpa, it's not my birthday anymore. So she's got the realistic view of life, too. I want to thank the Board of Directors for directing this organization through the last year in the difficult times as well. And also, especially, our staff. Crystal and the crew, would you all stand up? Crystal's in the back. All the South Dakota Farm Bureau staff people, stand up so we can give you a round of applause. They've put a tremendous amount of work into this thing, and with the extra arrangements that had to be made so we could allow delegates to participate virtually today in the delegate session, that's all some things that they had to do that we don't normally do, and hopefully that'll all go very smoothly. Also, I want to recognize the Farm Bureau Financial Services people as well. I know Mike already had you folks stand up, so I won't have you do that again. But thank you so much for what you do in helping our members protect their lives and their livelihoods and their futures. Without that, it just wouldn't be what it is, and you surface a lot of new members and provide that valuable service to members. So thank you so much. Let's give them a hand again. And also I want to welcome our students from the Collegiate Farm Bureau at SDSU. Would you all please stand up so we can recognize you? They're a little bit scattered out, so thank you all for coming. And Jen Hurlbert over here in the red jacket has been our member of the Board of Directors this last year representing the Collegiate Farm Bureau. And it's been a great pleasure having her on the board, and she's been providing very valuable input for us. So thank you, Jen, and wish you the best as you go up to North Dakota to continue your education. Well, I want to start out with some highlights of 2020, and we're going to talk about some things that are facing us as we go forward after that. It started out where I had the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C., as you can see on the board up there, for the signing of the Phase 1 China deal that President Trump signed with China. This was just before the convention in Austin, Texas. I'm going to get that to stay there. And so we went out there, and it was quite an experience. A lot of pageantry with something like that, of course, and you have to go through all the background checks and everything to get in the White House, but it was certainly worth it. Governor Noem was there. The governor of Iowa was there. It was kind of a who's who of influential people in agriculture from all across the nation. And, of course, our representatives in Congress, our 2 senators, were all there. There's a picture in a little bit of that Governor Noem took. It was a selfie of the 2 of us and Senator Rounds. The one picture that you could see there was President Trump at the table with the Chinese representatives signing the agreement. And right behind, or right ahead of me, I should say, you see the curly silver hair in the gentleman there. That was Henry Kissinger. And I got to wondering as the program went along and they had lots of speakers and talking about the relationship with China, I was wondering what he was thinking looking back at his position as Secretary of State in the 70s when China was literally our arch enemy, and the progress that was made until that day when we were signing an actual trade agreement with China. And reportedly, he did say it was a remarkable achievement. So that was quite something. Then on to the AFBF convention in Austin. I went straight there and met Michelle there in Austin, Texas. That was going to be a little bit of a different experience too, because President Duval's wife, Bonnie, was suffering very, very badly from ovarian cancer, and she was just about to the end of her life. And we knew that she was probably about there, and we had been telling President Duval, you need to stay home with your wife and family. And he was struggling with that a little bit. And up till about a week before that, he hadn't made up his mind. Finally, I said, Zippy, if she happens to pass away while you're in Austin, Texas, could you live with that? And he didn't answer that question at that time, but later on he made the decision about 3 days ahead that he was going to stay home. So we knew that I would be kind of highlighting the convention or frontlining it as vice president, and the staff and all the state presidents on the board all pitched in and made it a successful event. The night she passed away was Saturday, the night before the convention started. And so we all got together and we said, number one, we're not going to let this become a funeral. We're going to celebrate her life, we're going to put our policy together, and we're going to have a great convention. And that's what we did. And then, of course, President Trump was at our election, or at our convention for the third time in a row, along with Secretary Perdue. And what a tribute and what a compliment to an organization to have a U.S. president, no matter who it is, come to your convention 3 years in a row. So that was just a fantastic experience. Then to the South Dakota legislature, we worked very closely with Governor Noem and her folks to pass improvements to the livestock zoning process. And it kind of went back to some remarks I made at an ag roundtable at the state fair that preceding summer. I talked about the difficulty we were having with permitting livestock operations and how it wasn't fair to people, and it was a detractor to people actually coming and applying for livestock permits. And after that meeting, she came up and said, we need to make that a governor's bill. Do you want to work with us on it? And Crystal was standing there too, and we said, absolutely. So we went to work on that. Michael Held, our lobbyist, everybody got involved, and we testified, and we twisted arms, and finally we're successful in getting that done. So the next step now is for all of us to go back to our counties and urge our county commissions and our zoning boards to adopt that process and decide if they want to be livestock counties or not. Then in March, Michelle and I were out in Washington, D.C. for the AFBF board meeting, and halfway through that week they declared the pandemic. The entire city shut down and cleared out. We were about to have our National Young Farmers and Ranchers conference in Louisville, Kentucky that very weekend. And when we talked to our lead team that was there setting up for it, they said, everybody's gone home, it's a ghost town, there's no use having this. Plus, we decided that with the quarantine period they were putting on, we didn't want 1,000 young farmers and ranchers from all over the country with their parents or their grandparents or the hired men at home running their farms trapped in Louisville for 2 weeks. So that was the consideration that went into that. And since then, not a lot has happened. Now, I need to digress just a little bit and tell you a story that should help us realize how blessed and fortunate we are to live in South Dakota and do what we do. We were just down in Des Moines for our insurance meetings early this week. And we stay at the Sheraton there in Des Moines, which is real close to the Iowa Farm Bureau office, just 2 or 3 blocks away. And not much going on there either. Hardly any cars in the parking lot, no staff around. There's an older gentleman, well, I shouldn't say older, he's just about the same age as I am. And he's from somewhere in Eastern Europe, I think, originally, because he still has a little bit of an accent. But he's very friendly and very talkative and loves to visit. And I could tell he's just so happy to have his job. And he drives the courtesy van, and he tends the bar at night if you have an event and all those things. So I said at one point that just the 2 of us were visiting, and I said, how do you keep this place open? He says, well, I'll tell you. Before the pandemic was declared, we had 115 employees in this place. As soon as that was declared, all the business went away. They sent 100 of them home. We've been running on 15 people in this place ever since. And apparently the Paycheck Protection Program, those kind of things helped them out for a while, but he said a couple months ago they officially laid off 80 people. So they're running somewhere between 15 and 20 people. He said, you know those people that were serving you at the dinner you had 2 nights in a row? Those are the management team here. They're just doing what it takes to keep the place running. So that's the impact of what COVID is doing to this country and to the world. And certainly we need to keep the world and our country in our prayers, and pray that the COVID pandemic is going to end very soon, because it's really taking a toll on our economy. So in spite of that, we'll get into some talk about the issues here. Our Farm Bureau staff and leaders have been very, very busy, even though they've been mostly working at home. And they're working for us and working to implement policy yet. A lot of work with Congress and the administration's gone on to assure aid bills were usable for agriculture. When the Paycheck Protection Program first came out, it wasn't very friendly for sole proprietors. We went to work with Congress on that and got that fixed. So that was Farm Bureau working for us. The CFAP program, when it first came out, the deadline was August 28. Well, just before that deadline, they changed the rules, they added some crops to it, they made some changes. So we asked Secretary Perdue to change the deadline date so people had a chance to adjust to that. And he was responsive to that and changed the date to September 11. There again, Farm Bureau was successful in working on our behalf. The dicamba issue, the Ninth Circuit vacated the registration on dicamba and ordered its use stopped right now when they put that order out. And that caused a tremendous amount of upheaval in ag country. And we asked the EPA to allow that pipeline supplies be allowed to be used, which was customarily the thing that they normally do in a situation like that. And after it went back and forth a couple times, they decided to do that, but then the plaintiffs in the case asked the Ninth Circuit to shut that down. Ninth Circuit said, no, we're going to allow the pipeline supplies to be used. There again, that's a victory. Now we have a 5-year registration for dicamba, and we've got some certainty in it. Now it's up to us to use it responsibly and make sure we use it the right way so it doesn't get taken away. AFBF put comments on the Pasture Rangeland Forage Rainfall Index Crop Insurance Program. South Dakota Farm Bureau is also working on comments on that, and that has a 21st of December deadline. So if any of you individuals also want to submit comments on that, you're certainly encouraged to do so. And then for those that might hire H-2A workers, there's a new wage methodology that the Labor Department just put into effect to determine the adverse effect wage rate, or the AWER is what they call it. And for those of us that don't hire H-2A workers, that's kind of all Greek. But for the people that do, that's a big deal, because that adverse effect wage rate makes the rate too high and makes them uncompetitive in many cases. So that's also definitely a victory for Farm Bureau. And then just recently we announced the Food and Ag Climate Alliance. That's American Farm Bureau, National Farmers Union, the Council of Farmers Co-ops, and Environmental Defense Fund. Now if that last one puts your antenna up, I agree with you. But this is an effort that President Duval and the staff started to try to get out ahead of the climate change talk. And you've heard a lot about that. And nobody gets a bigger rock in their stomach than I do when we start talking about climate change and what the radical leftists want to do in response to that and try to eliminate it, which I don't think they can do, but that's not what they agree on. Anyway, we put this organization together to try to influence some of these, what we would describe as radical groups, into agreeing with us. And the Environmental Defense Fund has come a long ways toward our way of thinking. And we think that maybe we can get out ahead and keep some common sense in this conversation as it goes along. We know it's going to be had, and if we aren't part of that discussion, we're going to get flat run over. And something really bad will get jammed down our throats, I can guarantee you. Because these people that are pushing it are very, very passionate, and they will not give up. So that'll be interesting to watch. Also, we met with NRCS Chief Matt Lohr twice. Both times in Washington. Actually, he invited Michelle and me when we were out there to visit with him once at his farm, so we got to tour that. And he has now left NRCS, unfortunately, to go back to his farm full-time. Crystal and I have also met several times with Jeff Zimprich, the state conservationist, who has just in the last few days announced his retirement as well. We discussed issues with both of those gentlemen in regard to 2 court cases that said NRCS is not following their own rules, and they're not being fair to landowners with the wetland determinations and things like that. And we asked both of them, what are their plans to comply with those court decisions, and the National Appeals decision, National Appeals Division Director decision to the same extent. We couldn't get anything back from them, and we continue to work on that. I sent a copy of the article about one of those cases, which was the Wilkie case in Illinois, where this gentleman appealed a bad decision 4 times, all the way up to the National Appeals Division. It took 9 years to do it, and he spent I don't know how many thousands of dollars. But he eventually won it, and he was awarded $65,000 in court costs, which I'll guarantee you doesn't even come close to touching what he spent on it. So I took a copy of that article. It was in the farm magazines, and I sent it to all 3 of our congressional offices, and I just put a note with it that said, isn't it sad that in a country that's supposed to be free like we are, that anything like this could ever happen to our landowners or citizens? And it got the attention of Logan Penfield, who works for Senator Round's office. And he wrote back and he said, I didn't realize there was anything this bad going on. We should do something about it. So he talked to his boss and got Senator Round's blessing to work on that. And he sent a message to me saying, let's put a bill together to see if we can legislate some changes to the way NRCS behaves. And we worked on that with him, Wayne Smith with our office, and we also had our experts in Washington, D.C. work on it as well. And that bill is in kind of a rough draft form, but it's getting really close, and he's getting ready to introduce that. And I certainly hope that he follows through with that. And we're going to be very much on board with trying to get it done that way. So that's a huge win if we can get that done. And then I also had the opportunity to chair the cattle market working group. President Duval asked me to chair that along with 10 other state presidents. And we studied every issue with the cattle markets in response to the COVID effects, but then also the Holcomb fire a couple of years ago, and what caused all the market gyrations in the cattle market. And we had 9 virtual meetings, spent about 20 hours altogether, did a lot of economic research on it with our people at AFBF. And our final report came out in September, and I've got a copy with me here if you want to see it. Or if you want to find it on the FBF website, go to fb.org and do a search on Cattle Market Working Group Report, and you'll find it very easily there. So where do we go from here? We've got a lot of different things staring at us, as if we were short on things that we thought we could never see before. Mike's laughing up here. You know, first of all, I'll talk about some of the issues we're going to talk about. Labor and immigration reform is something we've tried to work on for a long, long time. It's really, literally a political football in Congress. So it's hard to get anybody to really take a position and work on it. But we're going to continue to work on that. NRCS reform, I mentioned that. The Senator Rounds bill, we'll be on board with that. Another farm bill, whether we want to talk about it or not, is coming soon. When that's a 5-year cycle like it is, it seems like you just get it done and they get it implemented, and then we start talking about what we're going to do next. Certainly with the apparent change in the administration in Washington and the House remaining in Democrat control, plus Chairman Peterson got defeated in his election, so there will be a new House Ag Committee chairman. That could be a challenge, or we could get somebody that's pretty good that understands agriculture and sees things our way. So we'll certainly be weighing in on that process as it goes along. We'll also continue to promote trade and product uses. We're seeing a little bit up in the market now, and I think that's related to China buying a lot of products, some of the other trade deals finally kicking in, and we're seeing some life in the market. I saw a stocks-to-use ratio chart the other day on soybeans, and we're at a historic low in stocks-to-use ratio, which is a good thing. So we're raising a lot of beans, record crops, but we're also using a record amount of soybeans. So that's a good thing. And then, of course, broadband access. As we've had these virtual meetings and all these things we've been doing in the COVID crisis, I think there's no greater message that's been driven home to us that we need constant and consistent broadband access across this country, and we don't have it in all areas. So let's talk about the big elephant in the room. That's the presidential election, and what will the effects be? And I think that's kind of top of mind for everybody. It at least appears, pending all the lawsuits that the Trump administration has entered and all the things that are going on, that we're going to have a new administration. And there were lots of good things that President Trump did when he was there for 4 years. Rolling back regulations, helping us with waters of the U.S., all those different things. And it's very possible that those things are in peril. They could be overturned within days or weeks when the swearing in is done. But on the other side, of being concerned about that, we will do everything we can to work with the new administration and make sure that Farm Bureau is at the table and positioned to be the most influential we can on behalf of our members. And President Duval will be here tomorrow night, and I think he'll probably tell us a story about what he went through. As you're probably aware that he did a short video congratulating Joe Biden on apparently winning the election and talking about working with them going forward. And it created quite a stir across the country with some of our members. But he had very solid reasons for doing it, and I'll let him talk about that with you tomorrow night. But some of the things we're hearing that are causing concern are rejoining the Paris Climate Treaty. Mr. Biden said he would rejoin that as soon as he's sworn in. That would concern us. The response to climate change, I mentioned that a little bit. That could cost double or triple our energy costs. And in our minds, in our policy, it really wouldn't do that much good. So that has to be something that has common sense put into it. The Green New Deal. One of our economists at AFBF was asked not long ago if they've had a chance to put a dollar figure on the Green New Deal the way it's proposed. And they said, well, we don't have enough details to really do that, but I'll guarantee you it will be in the bazillions of dollars, and that's a direct quote. So look for that. I've heard people say $100 trillion. We can't even understand what kind of money that is. But then higher taxes, free tuition, Medicare for all, these are all things that would concern us policy-wise. It's all about overall control of our economy, our country, and our lives in various ways. And then one that should really get your attention is the Farm Systems Reform Act. Has anybody heard of that? There's a few. Mike's got his hand up. That would eliminate CAFOs, in other words, anything over 1,000 animal units within the next 20 years. Can you imagine the federal government eliminating that, causing us to stop operating those operations, scaling them back, whatever has to be done? Talk about overbearing control. We must make sure that something like that doesn't happen. Our convention theme is Forward Together. I want to congratulate our staff. Whoever had that idea, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect for the situation we find ourselves in right now. Keep in close contact with your 3 members of Congress. And this means everybody. And I'm going to spend the rest of the time here this morning with my address talking about that. Our society, our morals, and our values are changing in this country, whether we want it to or not. And it will come under more attack, assuming that things continue in the trajectory that it appears they will. So this is a call to action for us to speak out and get involved, each and every one of us, not just the leaders of this organization, because that's not going to be enough. It's going to take every individual. President Duval has said ever since we were both elected to our respective offices in 2016, you need to get outside your fence rows. That's something his father told him when he was a kid. And we all need to do that. We need to get off our farms, get out there, and make sure we're involved in the process, whatever it is. So you can run for school board, county commission, your zoning boards, your legislature. I'd like to ask everybody who's been on a school board or county commission or a zoning board or in the legislature, either past or present, would you please stand up? Let's see how many people have done that. Okay, quite a number. That's an excellent thing, and I want to encourage everybody else to do this as well. I've been on a school board. I haven't been on county commission, but they're 2 very thankless jobs, so they're about on the same level. In our 20 and 21 legislature, we have 15 Farm Bureau members that are members of the legislature coming up, and there are 2 that aren't returning from last year. So that's also remarkable. It's great to have people in our organization in those influential positions. And most importantly, be active in Farm Bureau. And all of you here that are here are active in Farm Bureau, and I commend you for that. And try to get more of your people at home to do the same thing. Now make no mistake, the future of ag is great. The demand for food, fiber, and energy will never go away. But the question is, will we be allowed by our citizens and policymakers, both environmentally and socially, to keep operating the way we do now? We always have to look to improve, but we have to make sure that those improvements follow sound science and make economic sense. If they don't, we won't be here financially to make them happen. But it's more important than ever to tell our story, both to consumers and policymakers so they understand agriculture, because that's a national issue. Somebody said that earlier this morning. Food security is a national security issue, and we have to remember that. Now, another thing we need to remember, and I have to remind myself, is that God is always in control, whatever happens. We need to continue to remind ourselves of that. And he also expects us to do our best. We must remain positive and optimistic. We'll have more challenges in regard to policy in the next 4 years than we've had for quite some time. So we all have to work together and participate in the process. Many of these issues involve our freedom in some way. And I'd like to end with 2 quotes today. First of all, one from Ronald Reagan. If you Google search Ronald Reagan quotes, it's fascinating. He had so many wise things to say, and it's fun to look through them. But this one is especially pertinent, I think. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on to them to do the same. Or one day we'll spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States, where men were free. And there's another one, and I thank Brenda for sending me this one. I hadn't seen it before, but you can buy that on plaques and little things here and there. It says, God isn't asking you to figure it out. He's asking you to trust that he already has. That should be on everybody's refrigerator. In closing, I want to thank all of you for being Farm Bureau members, for being influential in your communities and in our industry, and for what you do every day on our farms and ranches. May God bless you all, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.